everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. My guest today is Audrey Dunham. She has been on the show before, but she has something to announce. She just launched a brand new line of vegan and gluten-free cookies. They're free of the top 11 allergens, and they're so easy to make. I baked up some myself. I'm going to show you in a second. And please welcome her to the show. It's nice to see you again. How are you?
Likewise, Chef. So wonderful being here. Thank you so much for having me again.
Of course. So tell us about the new line, because you kind of had a line before. So now do you have two lines or?
Yes, okay, so it's a little bit of a crazy story, but 8 years ago I launched a baking mix line, Peanuts Bake Shop. Now, they didn't have peanut flour. They were actually named for a character that is in my husband's comedy show. My husband, Jeff Dunham, is a comedian and ventriloquist, and one of his characters that has been around for 30 plus years is named Peanut. And 8 years ago, I thought, hey, let's expand the Dunham brand, bring him to the grocery store, and that's why I created Peanuts Bake Shop cookie mixes. So there was a little bit of a cult following over the years, and really people just loved them and couldn't get enough of them. And the one complaint, though, was the shipping and the shipping costs and whatnot, and people really wanted to be able to find them in grocery stores. So a couple years ago, I started working with a branding team, thought, okay, let's really hone this, get it ready for retail. What do you suggest? What should we do? And they said, well, we have one big problem. You have an allergen-free baking mix line with the name Peanut in the title.
That does make sense, because even though your husband is very well known and he's the funniest ventriloquist in the world, his show is amazing. I could imagine the few people that don't know him would hear the word peanut and not realize it's allergen free.
Oh, for sure. I mean, can you imagine if you had a peanut allergy, you wouldn't even want that written on your package or even give it a second look, even though there are zero nuts in the mix. So I was pretty heartbroken, but realized they were right. And we got to work thinking of a new brand. And that's how we came up with Autumn Sons Baking Company. And this baking mix line is named for my twin boys. They're now 8 years old, Jack and James, and they were born in October, making them our Autumn Sons. And on each and every package, there's 4 flavors. You'll see little drawings of them, a little redhead and a little brunette, because that's how they are in real life. And they're doing some other little funny activity on the front of the package for each flavor. And you'll even see them on the back. They're tearing the cookie in half right here. And they just think it's the greatest. They really just love the fact that they get to be on the package of a cookie mix. And they can't wait until they make it to store shelves. So for now, we're on Amazon. And we launched first. I can't get these to stand up. Launched first in Canada, actually, at the end of November, and launched in the US last week. So here we are. We're starting out on Amazon to begin with, and we're going to go from there.
Well, congratulations. I can't imagine easy getting a product into stores. So what stores can we look forward to seeing it in?
Oh, you know what? That's to be determined. I will let you know as soon as I do. Of course, I have high hopes for Whole Foods. So we are getting the application going for Whole Foods, and we already are well on our way with that process in Canada. And you'll be the first to know, Chef, as soon as they hit retail.
Thank you. Yeah, because what I can do is I can amend the show notes to say where people can buy it. So
Okay.
you said there, okay, so we have the bag right here, and I'm going to show you the batch that I made. Top 11 allergen free. So what are the top 11 allergies that your cookie mixes are free of?
Well, of course, there's the obvious ones like shellfish. So there's no shellfish. But of course, we also have our dairy, eggs, nuts, gluten, soy, lupin, sesame, let's see, celery. Trying to think of what the other ones are. And they're non-GMO, I should say. They're non-GMO certified and certified kosher. And so I just wanted to make them as accessible to as many people as possible. And also the goal with these cookie mixes was to create something that you'd be proud to share with family and friends without any apologies. No need to say, sorry, they're gluten-free or sorry, they're vegan, because really you can't tell, and there's no sacrifice being made here at all.
Now, did you say lupin free? What does that mean, lupin free?
It's interesting because when you Google top 11 allergens, it's a different list in Canada than it is in the US. But lupin is a type of bean, And they're finding that it's making the top list of foods that people are allergic to. And it's interesting because there aren't any other beans that are quite high on the list. I mean, chickpeas aren't as high. I know that is an allergen for some people, and we do have chickpea flour in these mixes as well as oat flour. Those are the top two flours that I use. But lupin, interestingly enough, has made the list now, and I think that people are becoming more and more aware of their sensitivities, and just, crops are changing, things are changing, and so now, for whatever reason, lupin is on that list. So
That is I never heard it called that, lupin. So I'm going to show you. Right before the show, I baked a batch. It was very easy to make, and there were not. I know it said it made 8, but it made 9. And my husband already ate one, and he said it was delicious. And so they have them right here, very easy to make. I was tempted to put raisins in, but I didn't know if I could. I wanted to ask you first.
Definitely, raisins go really nicely in these cookies, but since they are technically cinnamon oatmeal cookies, they do best with raisins rather than chocolate, unless you're okay with the combination of cinnamon and chocolate. So if you were to do any sort of add-in, I would definitely pick raisins first.
Nice. What are your flavors? How many different flavors do they come in?
So we have 4. We have the oatmeal cinnamon that I've already spoken about, and we have our double chocolate, which is really for that chocolate lover out there. And I have a great recipe on autumnsonsbaking.com to replace the oil with a nut butter. So if that's something you're interested in, you can find that on autumnsonsbaking.com. Let's see, we also have the very first flavor that I created for Peanuts Bake Shop, chocolate chunk. And we also have this brand new flavor, which is sugar cookie. And this one is, literally just released it at the end of November for the very first time. I've yet to find an oil substitute that I'm really happy with. So to be determined on that one, but applesauce works really nicely in the chocolate chunk. That recipe can be found on audreydunham.com and will soon be on autumnsonsbaking.com as well.
Well, I found on the website, because first of all, it only called for 1 tablespoon of oil anyway, for this, but you said I could use banana, and I did. I always have a ripe banana, and it literally took 2 seconds to make and then 7 minutes to cook. So,
nice. Shall I demonstrate how easy it is?
Absolutely.
All right, well, you start with just a half of a large, very ripe banana. And of course, for those who don't have a lot of experience baking with banana, you want to make sure that it has the brown spots. And that's how you know it's very ripe. So I have a half going in. And if you really love the flavor of banana, you can use a whole, but it can be a bit much. So I think the half is a little bit better.
You know what, Audrey, I did use the whole one, not because I love banana, but because I didn't know what I was going to do with the other half.
Oh, there you go. So you have an extra banana-y batch of cookies with you then. But do you ever freeze them, Chef, and use them?
Oh, always. I always have frozen bananas in my house. You betcha.
Yeah, there you go. And that's what we usually do with the other half. Or my husband really loves putting sliced banana on his oatmeal in the morning, so sometimes we'll save it for him. And you basically just want to create a puree, but really pureed, so really mash it well with a large fork. And then from there, we just add our mix. Another goal with these mixes was truly to make them as simple as possible. I'm blown away these days by how many cookie mixes call for basically everything except for the flour and the sugar and the baking soda. Like, they literally have you add so many ingredients, and I feel like that's a little disappointing. So I like to make it super easy. So if you have a friend coming over or family, or you need cookies for school or a meeting, you can literally grab a bag of these and make them really quickly and easily. No need to prep or buy any extra ingredients except for the 2 that are called for on the package. So in this case, it's banana and water. That's it.
I know. How easy is that?
That was the goal. So a tablespoon of water. And then from here, you're going to give it a good stir just to see how it comes together. Actually, I'm going to switch to a spoon at this point.
Here, Patricia said, what about pumpkin for an oil substitute? It may not work in the sugar cookie because of the color, but pumpkin is a very good oil substitute. Thank you. And so is tofu, by the way. But then, yeah, she's got the allergen-free thing. So yeah.
That's true. That's true. I mean, there's so many really fun substitutes out there to play with. The pumpkin, I'm really intrigued by. I need to try that for sure. I actually have a recipe on audreydunham.com that where you add pumpkin. That one does have a little bit of oil in it, but now I'm intrigued to see if I can leave it out and see if it still works. I will let you know.
Nice.
So you're aiming with all of these mixes, no matter what recipe you're following or which flavor you're making, you want a really dry dough. You don't want it to be super sticky like the cookie dough that you grew up with or a lot of other cookie doughs. It needs to be really dry, otherwise they will spread like crazy. But you want to give this a good stir and mash it with the back of the spoon just to see how we're doing. And I really do feel that we might need an extra teaspoon of water, and that's what I do call for in the recipe if it's needed. But at this point, it's looking pretty dry. So that's how you can tell. But a little bit of water goes a long way, so we're only adding 1 teaspoon. And we'll see what happens.
So are the flavors of Peanuts Bake Shop and Autumn Suns the same? Are they the same product? It's just different names because of the confusion that people might have with peanut?
That's exactly right. So they're the exact same mix at this point, but the brand that will continue to expand and grow will be Autumn Suns. Peanuts Bake Shop will hold on to it as long as people want it. So the fans really seem to love it, and they sell like crazy at Jeff's live shows. They're always featured at the merchandise stands, or at least whenever they're in stock. Sometimes we sell out. And so we will hold on to that brand as long as people still want it.
Nice.
Okay, so now it has come together. All the flour has been absorbed, and you can see it's kind of created a little bit of a ball. Like I said, you want as little moisture as possible. And let's see, set this aside for now. Now this will get a little sticky, so what I like to do is use a tablespoon to measure out our cookie dough. And that just keeps our fingers a little cleaner. They're probably still gonna get sticky anyway, but it's basically a rounded tablespoon's worth of dough. And we're gonna create, actually in this case, I typically try and make 12, but like you did, sometimes I'll do 8 or 9, just kind of depends on how big I want my cookies. And we'll just create 12 equal sized balls. Oh, this one isn't nearly as sticky as the one I've just made earlier, which is nice, but we'll see how it goes.
Which are your kids' favorite flavors?
Well, what's interesting is they have chosen their favorites and they have stuck to them all of these years. So Jack, my redhead, he loves the original chocolate chunk flavor. And Jeff and my other son, James, they love the double chocolate chunk. But what's interesting is that I actually tend to steer towards the chocolate flavors myself. But then when I try the oatmeal and the sugar cookies, I'm torn because they're all really, really special to me, and they all are so different and they all have their place. I truly feel it depends on your personal taste. And it's interesting, I'll talk to a lot of people who just don't like chocolate. They don't care for it. And oatmeal is their favorite, hands down. So
Did you always love to bake, or is this just because you had kids and kids love cookies?
I've always loved to bake. My mom was a baker. She was very busy. She was a working mom. And so our recipes were always very simple and quick, which I think is how most people prefer it, really. And so we were following the directions on the back of packages and just making like the Nestle Toll House or whatnot. But after a while, as I grew older, I felt like it was my job to make sure that cookie jar never was empty. So it felt like every Saturday I was in the kitchen baking cookies, either by myself, with my mom, with a friend, and it was just became one of my very favorite activities. And then as I got older, started to learn more about nutrition, earned a plant-based nutrition certificate through eCornell, and just really felt like my new mission in life was to make vegan eating as easy, approachable, and accessible as possible. And in whatever form that needs to be, that's why I'm put on this earth. And,
So when did you first become vegan or plant-based?
it was, I actually kind of dabbled in it in my early 20s, which was 20 years ago. And then started doing fitness competitions in my late 20s and kind of got talked out of being vegan vegetarian simply because everybody felt like you needed to eat animal protein back in those days, and thought the only other way to do it was to eat tons of tofu. And I tried that for a while and got really sick of tofu. And so switched over to just eating chicken and turkey for a while. But then by the summer of 2017, the more research I did, the more the more documentaries came out, and just, of course, wanting to provide the very best food for my family, my kids as possible. I just knew it was time to go vegan and never turn back. And that's exactly what I did. And it was that summer that I earned the certificate of plant-based nutrition. So, but I have the fitness background. And honestly, after that point, it was easier than ever to keep my weight down. The muscle that I was worried that I would lose, it was ridiculous because suddenly I have definition in my arm that I hadn't seen in a while. And really, when I was eating animal protein, it was really hard to keep my weight down unless I was on a very strict competition diet. And it just became a lot easier when I switched over. So truly one of the best decisions I've ever made. And of course, now it's my life. And it's been great. It's been so much fun. I have a blog, audreydunham.com, where I share recipes. I've written 2 holiday themed vegan cookbooks, and then I have these cookie mixes. So
Nice. Are cookies your favorite thing to bake? Because I know you have a bunch of cookbooks. Do you also do pies and cakes and other things?
Oh, sure. Cookies are by far my favorite, but I have a sweet tooth and I love them all. So.
Well, Tina, who's watching live, said, just like you consider alternative flours, would you ever consider making at least one with an alternative sugar, like a date sugar or whole dates?
Oh, definitely. And honestly, if I could, I would call for dates in a recipe. But since I'm trying to keep the called for ingredients down to the very minimum, it is an easily accessible ingredient for most people. But date sugar, definitely, I will certainly consider that as long as it works in the recipe. And the price, that's the trickiest part, honestly, is the price. And so for now, I have a vegan cane sugar that we use in the mixes. But I'm constantly on the lookout. I'm never settling. I'm always looking for better options, whatever that looks like.
Nice. Did you have a vegan pregnancy?
Vegetarian.
Yeah.
And then towards the end, I wish if I had another baby, I would be vegan 100% without a doubt. Back then, I didn't quite know as much as I do now, and gave into some cravings. And yeah, I'm not proud of it. I wish that, like I said, I wish I knew what I know now. But I read some of the wrong books too. And you're just so worried when you're pregnant too. You want to do what's best for your child. And I look back now and, gosh, that was ridiculous. All that Greek yogurt they were telling me to eat, it was just the opposite of healthy. And so I'm thankful my kids turned out pretty great. But
did they eat mostly plants?
Oh yes, they are all in. The only time that they will stray away just a little bit is if they're at a birthday party and there's cake.
Oh, sure.
And I don't want to be the parent that tells them they can't have cake. And every once in a while, they're not, I have to say, a lot of the time lately, they're not interested anyway, because they'll take one bite and they'll taste the egg, they'll taste the dairy, and it's really gamey to them now. So it doesn't take much for them to just set it down and say, no, thank you. And then we always have a house filled with treats anyway, so they know that we can go get something else to make up for it, and they are perfectly fine with that. And so the other message that I try and relay to the kids too is that when we go to parties, the main focus is the people. And I think that really helps just with adults too, when it comes to really sticking to that vegan lifestyle, if that's what you choose to do, to make it more about the people than the food. And it certainly makes it a lot easier to stick to what your goal is, and which is to follow this lifestyle.
Nice. Very cool. And weren't you going to be writing another book? You have two books right now, right? Holiday cookies and holiday pies.
So it's actually Christmas cookies and cocoa, and then vegan Thanksgiving dinner and pies. So it's a Thanksgiving and then a Christmas cookie, and those were written for people that I hear more than anything. Oh my gosh, please help me. I have a college aged child who just went vegan. They're coming home for the holidays, and I have no idea what to make because they just went vegan. And they just panic. They feel like they're going to have to make this whole separate vegan Thanksgiving or a whole separate meal just for them. And it's so not true because there's easy ways to make swaps so that everybody's eating the same thing and nobody will know the difference except for the turkey, of course. And so that was the goal in creating that. And I hope that I make people's lives a little easier, Thanksgiving, Christmas time, because of course with Christmas, we have our Christmas cookies that we grew up loving, and it's really hard to let go of something that we love so much as a child. And so I took the classic traditional cookies that most of us know and love. I did a big poll on Facebook, asked my followers, please tell me what your favorite cookies were growing up, put together a long list. And then those were the cookies that I included in the book, so that people don't feel like they need to give up their favorites if they choose to go vegan.
That's so cool. Growing up, my favorite cookie was the one my sister would make at the holidays. And I think it was like a oatmeal or gingerbread cookie, but she put spice drops in it. And I loved those.
Right, the little gumdrops, the colorful ones?
Yeah,
Or
the gumdrops that have the sugar on the outside. And I don't know, I would go nuts for those cookies. I
I
haven't.
have a recipe for that in my cookbook.
That's amazing. That is so cool. I love that.
Because me too. I mean, honestly, for me, there was this one old cookbook. Gosh, I wish I could remember what it was called, but I would just stare at the cover because it had one of those cookies on the cover. And as a child, like the rainbow pretty gumdrops, they just look super enticing. And I just thought that was the greatest book, even though we only used, I think, just the ginger snap cookie recipe out of it. But I love that cover. And so I duplicated the cookie that is featured there in the book. And that's just a little fun story about one of the recipes there.
Nice.
To finish this recipe, at this point, once they're on the baking sheet like this, and I have to say, parchment paper really helps, otherwise they will stick. If you have a brand new non-stick baking sheet, they will probably not stick, but if you've been using it for a while, you probably want to play it safe and have your parchment paper. And so then they go in the oven 7 to 9 minutes. You don't want them to turn brown, you just want them to be set. And so how you know is they will no longer be kind of sparkly, shiny. They will be completely matte and look like they are set, but not brown. Because the goal is to have nice, chewy, yummy cookies, right? And that's how you maintain that. So these will go in the oven, 350 degrees. And thankfully I baked some earlier, so we don't have to wait. This is what they look like. They are just so yummy.
Yours are like perfect and they're perfectly round.
Well, here's a little trick. As soon as they come out of the oven, you take a spatula and you just sort of scoot in the back of the spatula and you scoot in the edges. Anything that was looking wonky or sticking out funny, just push it in, but you have to do it right when they come out of the oven while they're still hot. And that's how you get perfectly round cookies.
Nice. Did you ever think of opening a brick and mortar bakery?
Oh, of course. I would love to. I have so many ideas and I wish I had more time in the day to tackle all of them. So yeah, I would love to do that. At some point, I think that would be really fantastic. And it's almost a little tempting. You hear about a lot of companies now that start in a ghost kitchen where they're baking product to basically sell on DoorDash. And so people place an order for warm cookies out of the oven, and then they can have them delivered to their door via DoorDash. And so I know that's what some people are doing before they can actually afford the brick and mortar store, just to kind of get the name out there, because you can still have the name of your company on DoorDash. So who knows, maybe I'll go that route.
Wow, that is really cool. I haven't lived in LA in over 5 years now, and I know you live somewhere in that area. Are there any new vegan restaurants that you know of?
So we're in the Valley, close to Calabasas. The one that we really love is Crossroads. There's a location in Hollywood. It's a location in Las Vegas, but I think you talk to anybody who's been to more than one location and they'll agree that the Calabasas location is the best. I don't know what it
Wow.
is. It just feels really special. And we truly feel that it is a place that we can go for special occasions, but also just an average day of the week where we feel like kind of treating ourselves out to dinner. And so I think this past year we went there for my birthday, Jeff's birthday, and our wedding anniversary, and probably Mother's Day. So it's, and then our other big favorite is a place called Nick's on Beverly. It's on Beverly Boulevard over the hill, about a 35, 40-minute drive for us, but holy moly, their food is so good. And we think it's the biggest treat in the world. And of course, being in the center of Hollywood, they went through a little bit of a rough patch during the strikes. So with the writer's strike and the actor's strike, they lost a lot of business, but the community really rallied to make sure that they could stay, and they were able to lower the rent, and we were so happy. And so now we make extra trips out that way to help support the restaurant.
Oh, that's great. I love it. Do you cook every night?
Most nights, just because I feel it's the healthiest way to go. Chef, you've done an amazing job of working with so many restaurants in the area. I just love when I suddenly see your name on random menus of the Chef AJ burrito or like,
I did that while I was there. I know Follow Your Heart created an oil-free, SOS-free menu. Hugo's took the oil out of a lot of their things. And then, of course, Sharky's. So, yeah. Well, because I just wanted someplace to eat. It wasn't altruistic, I swear. I just wanted someplace to eat. Oh, God, Audrey, up here, the restaurants. I mean, I didn't do this. I came. It was already done. Not just the vegan restaurants, of which there are many, but even the regular restaurants. There were so many vegans up here. There's about 9,000 in our little meetup group. And they convinced the restaurants not just to do vegan if they weren't vegan, but also SOS free options. And it's like, I could eat out. I could eat out every day. Usually it's once a week because I love pho. Pho's my favorite thing.
oh, nice. You like the noodles.
So yeah,
Wonderful.
actually I get it with rice instead. I don't know, noodles are not, noodles are too hard to
I had
eat.
no idea you could do rice. That's amazing.
Oh, they do it for me. They substitute either brown or white rice for me, and they call it Chef AJ special soup. Two of the restaurants have it, and it's the broth, and I love it so much. So, but I do miss your weather. I don't miss your traffic. I can tell you
Oh
that.
my gosh. You're kidding, right?
Yeah.
Just when I think it's a safe time to head on down the 405 or the 5 freeway or the 101. It doesn't matter what time of day, unless you leave at 5 a.m. on a Sunday, you're just going to deal with it.
I just remember that I lived there almost my entire life. So, but anyway, that's so cool. So yeah, people are saying, oh, is there a recipe? Well, the recipe you can get on the website of
Autumn
and baking, and I did the oil-free one. I used the oil-free option by using the banana instead of the tablespoon of oil, and they came out great. Here are the ones I baked, not as pretty as Audrey's, but Charles said they were delicious. They smell good. Next time I'll probably put some raisins in. I just wanted to ask the creator. Oh, look, you got a heart-shaped plate. How cool is that?
Getting ready for Valentine's Day around here. We certainly love the holidays. My mom always decorated our house for every single holiday, and actually she still decorates her house. But it was just a really fun part of my childhood, and so we've carried it on for my kids.
Nice. That is so cool. Well, gosh, guys, if you have any questions from Audrey on any of the social media platforms you're watching, all four of them, please put them in the chat. And I wish you every success. Do you ever, if you're in a store, you could go, like, if you get into Whole Foods, you can I think they still do demos, like you could be there handing them out to people.
Yeah, it's in the plans. Erewhon is a grocery store I'm sure you're familiar with out here. They're growing like crazy. I think they have 8 locations or something like that now. And Follow Your Heart, of course, I'll be approaching them. I just need to duplicate myself so I can do it all. But
yeah. Oh, Follow Your Heart would be great. Absolutely. That's a perfect product for them.
Right. They have that gluten-free bakery counter where we love eating that in that little cafe there. It's actually, for those who don't know, Follow Your Heart, of course, they make the cheeses and many other products, but they also have this location. How long do you think it's been there? 50, 60 years?
Oh my God. I think since the 60s. I think it's considered the oldest, at least vegetarian restaurant in California.
Amazing. It's such a great place to go. And I think at this point, their grocery store that is attached to the cafe, I don't see meat anymore. They may have gotten rid of all the meat. So it's just really fun how much stuff they can pack into this store, mostly vegan. But then the bakery case that's right in the restaurant there is also gluten-free. So they're very inclusive as well. So.
Nice. Yeah, it seems like so many people now have a gluten intolerance, more than I ever remember, growing up.
Without a doubt, it's. I think that that these things, the flour just isn't the same as it used to be, and it's just not agreeing with a lot of people, or perhaps people are eating too much and they're creating an intolerance, or who knows? I think there's a lot of things that we don't know, right? And so I'm just thankful that people are able to become aware of their sensitivities, even if it's not a celiac. If they just don't do well with it, it doesn't settle well in their stomachs, that there's easy ways now to just pick up a food sensitivity test, which I encourage anybody. If you have any sort of upset stomach at the end of the day, or you just feel like you have this consistent stomach ache, grab a food sensitivity test, and it might be something that you're eating every day that you don't even realize, like spinach or blueberries, and something that you would consider healthy that just doesn't agree with you anymore. And in a lot of cases, you can just take like a 6-month break and slowly incorporate it back into your life. And so that little tip that I've shared with so many people have saved them, because they were going to doctors, and that's not something that's recommended. So anyway.
Is there a test you recommend? Like you said, pick one up. So is there one that you recommend?
Yes, and I think that they're slowly getting less and less expensive, which is nice to see. The one I typically use is Everly Well, so like Beverly without the B, everlywell.com, and you can actually test for your food sensitivities. They have 2 different ones. They have one that does a really broad list of foods, and then one that's a slightly shorter list. They just test them for the most common, so 2 different price points there. But you can do hormone tests, you can test for your own cholesterol. It's just such a nice way to be able to figure out where you stand without going through a doctor first. So of course, like some of them are a little pricier than others, but I just love the fact that that's an option.
Nice. So Jennifer says, what about selling at farmers markets?
Certainly, we have one right here just down the street every Saturday. And I think that what I'll end up doing is expanding my team. And so thank you for the reminder and the suggestion. And just bring some people in that are enthusiastic for the brand and can represent me and can help me along, so that I can be in 10 places at once. But yes, that's a great idea, and it's on the list. Definitely.
I don't understand this question from an Instagram viewer named Bahar. What classes to take for gluten-free products? Are there classes where you can learn that, maybe?
I'm sure there are, but
you don't teach any though, right?
Do not. Yeah, I do not teach anything. And actually, I'm not gluten intolerant. I eat wheat on occasion, but I want to make it so everybody can enjoy these cookie mixes. And so that's why I've decided to go gluten-free. And then a lot of my recipes on my website have a gluten-free option as well. But I am constantly reading articles, watching videos like Michael Greger, just staying in the loop, trying to figure out, okay, what's the latest on this topic, so that if there's anything new, then I'm right there, the first to learn about it.
It's like you said earlier, I'm not sure that wheat is necessarily a problem. I think it's the United States that's the problem with the genetic modification and things like that, because I'll hear people that think they can't eat wheat and gluten, and they go to other countries and they're eating just fine the bread and pasta. So I think it has something to do with our country.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt that at all. It really is. I feel like I said before, I feel like there's just so much that we don't know that isn't public knowledge. And we would fix so many illnesses if people just learned a separate, whole new way. And there's a big paradigm shift as to what food should actually look like. So many people eating all the processed stuff, and really you're starving your body of vitamins and minerals, right? And so if that becomes your everyday food and you don't put it in sort of like a treat category, like I'm trying to teach my kids to do with some of the chips and things like that, then no, this is in the treat category, and this is how many treats we have per day, and this is the quantity. And of course, trying to keep it somewhat loose just for kids. I feel that if you go too hard on them, they'll eventually get old enough to where they can just be off on their own, and they may just decide to do the exact opposite of what they were raised to do, because there's just too much as a kid. So you have to be really patient and just do your best to fill them with knowledge so they know the reasons why, and then go from there. At this point, though, I'm really happy my boys, they're really interested in the idea of having muscles.
Oh,
And they're like, what, how do you get the squares right here? I said, well, it's called a six pack.
oh, that's funny. They're kind of get the squares.
So just explaining what foods will help lead to a six pack. I'm like, well, we all have one. It's just covered up typically by fat, and so when you get lean enough and healthy enough, those muscles start to come through. But of course, you can do exercises. But the most important thing is what you eat. So
Awesome.
that's a great motivator too for them.
Um, I think you must have tuned in a little late, Randy, because she did say her kids' favorite flavors are the chocolate chunk and the chocolate, right?
Yes, the two chocolate flavors. Those are their favorite for sure, and they've never gone any other direction. They've never even thought about considering another.
Oh boy. But do they try your other flavors just to tell you if they're good or they just
Oh, oh yes, they love the other flavors, and it's usually so when Jeff is in town, my husband, he will take them to school, and then I usually have after school duty. So, and I love picking them up. It's just fun, and I know it's such a short time in their lives that I'll get to do that until they're off and driving on their own. But their favorite is when I have a freshly baked cookie waiting for them in the car.
oh my God, what service. I wish that I mean I remember having to walk home or take the bus. There were no fresh cookies there. That's amazing.
And yeah.
So one of the viewers is asking for your Instagram. I did post it in the show notes.
It's just my name, Audrey Dunham. And same with my website, same with Facebook, same with Twitter, Pinterest.
Keep it the same. Very good. And there's a question from Randy. Have you ever used tiger nut flour and which flour could be a substitute?
I have not. Now, okay, so I need to do some research on tiger nut. Typically, if it's so in this case, I'm trying to avoid anything that has a name nut in it for these mixes. And then when it comes to the recipes I post online, my personal goal, is to make it a really accessible recipe. So I usually try and don't get any more exotic than chickpea or oat flour. That is something that people easily recognize. But tiger nut, I am intrigued. It might be something that I would just use on my own. So I will look it up and see how to use that and see what I can just make for our family around here.
Yeah, is it even a nut? They're everything. They make flour out of everything now. Banana flour, cassava flour. I mean, it's coconut flour. So there's just so many options now that are, that aren't nuts. Susanna said, what new flavors might be in the works in the near future?
That's the question now, isn't it? I'm actually playing around with the idea of making a ready-made product, either some crackers or pretzels that would, baked crackers that, but it's interesting. I feel like it's tough because most cracker recipes do call for oil, and I'm trying to avoid filling people's lives with more oil. Cookie mixes are a treat, and so it's an occasional thing, but crackers people will tend to eat every day. Playing around with that idea. But then of course there's brownies, there's cake mixes. Gosh, I mean, if anybody has any suggestions, what you wish existed in the world, what gluten-free products or just vegan in general that you feel like hasn't been done really well yet and you'd like to see another option, then please let me know. I'm dying to hear what you feel should be the next product.
Well, you're like the vegan Betty Crocker.
Thank you. That's a massive compliment. Thank you.
Well, lemon has always been one of my favorites, just so you know, lemon stuff, anything lemon.
I agree. Lemon is great. My mom loves lemon. And so what I do is on autumnsunsbaking.com, I provide recipes of different ways that you can use these mixes, which is actually where you can find the recipe we made today. So on Autumn Suns Baking, I'm about to post a recipe that will be a lemon sugar cookie. And it's just delightful. It's super yummy, definitely a treat. And if I can find a way to make it out without oil, I will definitely forward you the link.
Nice. Thank you. Crazy Farm Girl wants to know, are the cookies crunchy or chewy?
Chewy, definitely. You want to take them out of the oven before they have any brown around the edges whatsoever. So you want just the tops to be matte rather than shiny, and that's when you know they're done. And then you let them sit on the baking sheet for about 2 minutes after taking them out of the oven, and then you can enjoy, and they will be soft and yummy and gooey. But I have heard some people, they will bake them longer just because they like crunchier cookies. To me, I don't know, they're better when they're soft. So that's the way I recommend it.
You don't have a straight up chocolate chip cookie, do you? It's only chocolate chip.
Oh, actually, the closest thing to it is chocolate chunk. So
Chocolate. Oh, so that is your straight up chocolate chip cookie. Okay.
yes, very first flavor I ever created for the other baking mix line. And for me, it was really important to include chunks rather than chips, simply because I just wanted something that was different from everything else out there that made these cookies feel really special. And so the chocolate's a really big part of it. It's one of those things.
So when the Girl Scouts come to your door, do you just say, sorry, I got my own?
No, we get the Thin Mints because those are vegan.
Absolutely. There's actually, I don't really eat them, but I never turn them away. And so we buy and we give them to other people, but they do have apparently 3 vegan cookies now, the Girl Scouts.
Amazing. I'm going to look into that. I, of course, want to support the girls. And to be honest with you, I will usually give them to my parents. But we will keep a box of Thin Mints in the freezer and it will last almost all year because we'll just kind of grab it when we feel like it because I'm always making cookies around here. So you kind of have to be in the mood for that. But and with an interesting situation here, though, in Southern California, there are 2 different bakeries for the Girl Scout cookies, and some of them have vegan versions of the cookies and some of them don't. So if that's the case where you live too, I encourage you to make sure before you buy them that you have a bakery making those cookies that is in fact vegan.
Yeah.
Do they say on their website that they're vegan? Like if that's the case, then perhaps it's across the board now, which would be great.
I don't know. The little girl, I mean, I'm not going to challenge a 6-year-old, but she said they were like, it said on the little paper that they were vegan. So Jennifer says, we know which cookies your family likes best, but what about the buying public? Is it the same? Is it the chocolate? Is it the chocolate chunk?
At this point, I would say it's probably the double chocolate. And part of it is probably because it's just so unique. It's just like it's a darker color than your average double chocolate chunk cookie mix. We use a really dark, like actually call it a black cocoa. And so
I've seen that like from King Arthur.
Right, yes. And so it actually has, now some brands, they can be a little bitter, but the one that we use, it actually has almost some vanilla notes to it. Really, really tasty. So it's not like knock you over chocolate. It's actually like a nice blend combined with the chocolate chunks. And actually one of our favorite ways to enjoy these cookies is with the nut butter option where you use that instead of oil because that makes the cookies really gooey and rich. So we love that.
Nice. You ever put a little mint in there and make your own kind of thin mint?
Yes. Oh yeah, we do that around the holidays. Really, really fun. I wish I could remember the exact portions now, but you got to start out small with mint. Got to go really light, like a 1/4 teaspoon, and then build if you need, but you can be pretty strong and eat overdone if you don't want it. We also love to chop up a candy cane and you add it to the cookies after they come out of the oven and you just sprinkle it on top and press them down and kids love that. It's a massive treat.
Nice. Have you ever taught any cooking classes or was that something you'd like to do?
Oh, sure, I would love to. And honestly, I was about to launch a course in early 2020 and bought the program and signed up for the class to learn how to do a course. And then the pandemic hit and it just kind of changed everything. I felt like I was suddenly called to do something holiday related, something fun to bring joy to people during this hard time. And so I wrote the vegan Christmas cookies and cocoa cookbook I started it in June and was done by the end of August. I wrote the entire cookbook in a short amount of time. And the boys were really young at the time. They were 4. My mom was watching them constantly. And of course, Jeff, while I was constantly writing and perfecting recipes. And so anyway, of course, I still feel every now and then I'm called to do that as well. So we'll see.
Do your kids like bring their lunch to school?
Most of the time, but we're actually really fortunate that they always offer a vegan option every day at their school, which is
That's amazing.
But it is a sun butter sandwich on white bread. And I think it might be a gluten-free bread. It's like their allergen-free option. Sometimes they'll have like a pasta marinara. Sometimes they'll do a tofu, which is really great. But that's always the default or the backup, no matter what else they're offering the other kids. And so the other day, a few weeks ago, I volunteered to help. They let the parents volunteer and you have to sign up for it to help at lunchtime. And I was like, I gotta try this sandwich and see what my kids are so crazy about because they were eating this sun butter sandwich almost every day, or at least the days that they bought their lunch. And I couldn't believe it. It was like you immediately taste palm oil. It was like more palm oil than sun butter. It was really disappointing. So I'm gonna write and see if we can get that swapped out. Just knowing
Oh
my
man, that's it. That's something. What are your family's favorite savory meals you make? Because people may not realize you have a blog and a YouTube channel and you don't only do desserts.
Oh, so they're huge fans of tacos, and so we mix it up. We do all different types of tacos. Sometimes it's just some refried beans with some lettuce and tomato in there, and they love that. It's just something different. I have one child that likes plant meat and one that doesn't. So the one that doesn't will always opt for some black beans even, or some chopped avocado. We'll just get really creative and mix up the toppings for the tacos. I have one kid that loves salad and wants salad every day with his dinner. So I love that. That's Jack. And then my other son, James, he loves any other kind of vegetable, but not super crazy about salad yet. We're working on it.
So are they identical twins?
They're fraternals. We have our little redhead Jack and we have our little brunette James, but they both wear glasses. And so they look more like simply because of that.
Did you watch the new Netflix show about the 22 sets of identical twins?
So great. I thought that was fascinating. I just wanted to watch, I think it's 4 episodes in the
Yeah.
series. Jump ahead to the fourth one to see what happened. But it was really fascinating. And I almost want to contact them and get more details. I felt like there was a little bit that was left out about the results and how strict they were about it. But that's just me who is such a food person. I want to know more about what they were eating throughout that time. But
Yeah, I wish they'd focus a little bit more on like they only showed 4 of the sets and they got into other things like restaurants and animal rights, which is fine, but I would really like to see more of the other twins.
I didn't even see that until the very, very end. You all of a sudden see a room filled with identical twins, which is fascinating. So,
That is so cool. So what is next for you? I mean, I'm sure you're going to be pretty busy as you've just launched Autumn Sons Baking Company.
yes. Well, at this point, get the word out and tell everybody that we can about these mixes. I feel like there's so many people out there who are having to settle for cookies that don't taste super great or having to make something special for the one person in their life or for themselves that has a sensitivity. But truly, these are, like I said, these are cookies that you can bring to a party or gathering. You never have to tell anybody that they're gluten-free or vegan. The goal was to make them decadent and enjoyable for everybody, no matter what.
Well,
So,
I think you accomplished that.
thank you.
Well,
And
thank you. And I wish you every success. And when you know what stores you're in, let me know. I can update the show notes and then people can know where to go.
fantastic. Thank you so much for having me, Chef. It was wonderful being here
It's
as always.
my
Seeing
pleasure.
you.
Thank you so much, Audrey. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific time for our plant-based dermatologist, Dr. Jessica Krant, who will answer your questions. Thanks again so much for watching. It's so good to see you, Audrey.